Imagine being stranded, completely alone, on a desolate island in the middle of the Arctic Ocean. Your 4 companions are gone. The brutal polar winter is closing in, and your only company is a half-wild cat. This isn't the plot of a Hollywood movie. It's the true story of a quiet, unassuming Inuit woman named Ada Blackjack. Her tale of survival against impossible odds is one of the most incredible, yet often overlooked, stories of human endurance ever told. Ada was just 23 years old in 1921. She was a seamstress from Nome, Alaska, a widow struggling to provide for her young son, Bennett, who was sick with tuberculosis. Desperate for money to pay for his medical care, she saw an advertisement for a job that seemed too good to be true. A cook and seamstress for a scientific expedition to Wrangel Island, high above the Arctic Circle. The pay was $50 a month, a small fortune back then. Despite her fears and having no experience in the wild, she signed on, believing she would be joining a group of experienced Inuit families. But when she arrived at the ship, the Northern Light, she discovered she was the only Inuk. The rest of the team consisted of 4 young, ambitious white men. The leader was the charismatic Canadian explorer, Alan Crawford. The others were Lorne Knight, Milton Gall, and Fred Moore. They were handpicked by the famous and controversial explorer Vilhjalmur Stefansson. Stefansson was the mastermind behind the expedition. He had a grand vision to claim Wrangel Island for the British Empire, believing its strategic location would be vital in the future age of polar aviation. The problem? Stefansson wasn't actually going. He organized the whole thing, convinced these young men it would be an easy adventure, and then sent them off while he stayed behind to raise funds. He promised them the island was teeming with game and that a supply ship would arrive the following year. Filled with youthful optimism, the team set sail, waving goodbye to civilization. For Ada, a seed of doubt had already been planted. She was terrified, surrounded by strangers in a world utterly foreign to her. She even tried to back out, but it was too late. They landed on Wrangel Island in September 1921. At first, things went well. They established a camp, hunted seals and polar bears, and mapped the island. But Ada was miserable. She was homesick and intimidated by the men who, despite not being cruel, didn't understand her cultural background or her deep-seated fears. She spent her days mending their clothes and cooking, counting the seconds until she could go home to her son. The first winter passed. It was tough, but manageable. The real trouble began in the summer of 1922. The team scanned the horizon day after day, waiting for the promised relief ship. It never came. The pack ice around the island was unusually thick that year, and the ship couldn't get through. Their supplies dwindled, and the reality of their situation sank in. They were trapped. As the second unplanned winter approached, the mood in the camp soured. Food became scarce. The men, once so confident, grew weak and desperate. Lorne Knight, the strongest of the group, fell ill with what they later realized was advanced scurvy. He became bedridden, demanding, and often cruel to Ada, who was forced to become his nurse. The other 3 men, Crawford, Gall, and Maurer, made a desperate decision. In January 1923, they decided to set off across the treacherous, frozen sea ice, hoping to reach Siberia, hundreds of miles away, to get help. They promised Ada they would return. They were never seen again. Now, Ada Blackjack was truly alone. Alone with a dying man who resented her, on an island stalked by polar bears. The woman who was terrified of firearms, who had never hunted a day in her life, was now the sole provider. It was a turning point. Something inside Ada shifted. The quiet seamstress, the timid mother, had to become a survivor. She had to learn to hunt, or they would both starve. Her first attempts were clumsy and frightening. She was so scared of the rifle's kickback that she would crawl away from it after firing. But she persisted. She taught herself to build a proper lookout platform to spot game, how to set traps for Arctic foxes, and how to shoot seals. She braved the blizzards to check her trap lines and drag her kills back to camp. All the while, she cared for the deteriorating Lorne Knight, enduring his verbal abuse, cleaning him, and feeding him the best of the food she managed to secure. She documented everything in her diary, writing in simple, poignant prose about her fears, her small triumphs, and her longing for her son. In June 1923, Lorne Knight died. Ada, now 25 years old, was the last human being on Wrangel Island. The immense loneliness was crushing. She wrote in her diary, "I'm left all alone now." She constructed a barricade of boxes around her tent to protect herself from polar bears. She built a skin boat from driftwood and canvas, hoping to one day sail away. Her only companion was Vic, the cat. She was surrounded by the ghosts of her companions and the overwhelming silence of the Arctic. For 2 more agonizing months, Ada survived. She fought off polar bears, endured brutal storms, and battled a loneliness so profound it's almost impossible for us to comprehend. She was no longer just Ada the seamstress. She was a master of Arctic survival, a testament to the unyielding power of the human spirit when pushed to its absolute limit. Her motivation was simple and pure. She had to get back to her son, Bennett. Then, on August 19, 1923, after 2 years on the island, a ship appeared on the horizon. It was a rescue schooner, the Donaldson, chartered by a former colleague of Stefansson's. The crew found a small, weathered figure on the shore, standing proudly beside a flagpole she had erected herself. It was Ada Blackjack, alive and well. The female Robinson Crusoe, as the newspapers would soon call her, had been rescued. Her return to civilization was a whirlwind. Reporters hounded her, wanting the sensational story of the lone woman survivor. But Ada was a quiet, private person. She shied away from the spotlight. The expedition's mastermind, Vilhjalmur Stefansson, published a book that glorified the dead men and downplayed Ada's heroic role, even trying to avoid paying her the full amount she was owed. She had to fight to get her money. Despite the fame or infamy, Ada's life remained a struggle. She was eventually able to reunite with her son Bennett and get him the treatment he needed in Seattle. But the money didn't last forever. She lived a quiet life, raised another son, and eventually returned to the Arctic, far from the prying eyes of the world. She rarely spoke of her time on Wrangel Island. Ada Blackjack died in 1983 at the age of 85. Was not a swashbuckling adventurer or a glory-seeking explorer. She was a mother who was pushed into an impossible situation and found a strength within herself she never knew she had. She didn't survive for fame or for country. She survived for her child. Her story is a powerful reminder that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they're the quietest people in the room, the ones who, when faced with the ultimate test, simply refuse to give up. Ada Blackjack, the unassuming heroine of the Arctic, deserves to be remembered as one of the greatest survivors of all time. Thank you so much for watching. If you found Ada's story as inspiring as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more tales of incredible human history. See you next time.